Hey everyone, David here, and welcome to the first video rundown of the week's news. We're going to take a look at my last ranked battle in the background. It was a pretty fun match, and it kind of summarizes what makes all the frustration and stress worthwhile. You get a degree of team play that is pretty hard to come by in random battles. It's just really nice. It's refreshing and pretty unique when an entire team can work together and kind of sense when to do what. I really enjoy that. So that's part of what makes ranked battles fun and sort of helps ease the pain. So let's get into it. New ships on the way. So a lot of this stuff is going to be things that are currently in Super Test, and so we're talking about stats that are subject to change, may very well change, might change quite substantially, so take this all with a grain of salt, of course. First off, the Kaiga. It is an aircraft carrier, premium aircraft carrier, only the second one in the game after the Saipan, and it is very interesting because it is basically the inverse of the Saipan. The Saipan has higher tier planes. They're actually tier 9 planes in a tier 7 carrier. The Kaiga is the reverse. You've got a lot of planes, but they are lower tier planes. They're actually tier 6 planes in a tier 7 carrier. However, you have, depending on the loadout, looks like either 85 or 86 in your hangar, which is quite a lot. And you have some very interesting loadouts as well. There's a 024 loadout, and there's also a 350 loadout. Yes, 5 torpedo bomber squadrons. But that particular loadout has only 2 planes per torpedo bomber squadron. So very, very interesting. And none of these things, none of the other loadouts and squadrons follow the normal formula of 4 planes per squadron for the most part. I thought it was worth noting that in the 350 loadout, your torpedo bombers are literally a Dursky. You've got 5 sets of 2. So I just thought that was a little bit funny. You basically got an aircraft Dursky going on. And the last interesting thing is unfortunately not going to be an interesting thing in the actual game, but the secondaries on this thing. It's got 10 200mm secondary guns, and then an additional 16 127mm secondaries. That would actually be pretty interesting as a usable weapon ensemble. The problem is these only shoot to 4.5 kilometers, so they're just secondaries. They're just, oh, oops, there's a DD. I hope I get a few shots on him before he kills me sort of situation. I think that's a little bit of a waste. Now, obviously, they've gone way out of their way to make the aircraft themselves pretty unique on this ship, but I almost think there was a missed opportunity there to actually have I don't know, maybe an offensively useful secondary build, because you'd be talking about 5 8-inch guns and 8 5-inch guns per side. So imagine a secondary build with that if it actually had some range. I'm not saying you should go chasing after things in your aircraft carrier, but I don't know. Could have been interesting. And it could have definitely been a nasty defensive weapon system if it had a little more range to it. But anyway, it doesn't, at least currently. So, oh well. The hood needs no introduction. I'm sure many people have been looking forward to this particular ship, and it looks like it's going to be a very fast battle cruiser in the game. It's got 15-inch guns, very similar to what the Warspite has. And it is a big ship. It's extremely large, and you're basically getting speed at the expense of your turning circle and armor. So as opposed to something like the Warspite, which is very well armored and can turn very tightly, this takes a long way to turn around, and it also does not have the kind of armor that the Warspite does, but it's very quick. So yeah, it should be interesting. We'll see what it's like. The Duca Dosta is extraordinarily fast. This is the Italian cruiser, of course, and it is capable of traveling at 36.5 knots, which is getting up into slower destroyer territory. So that'll be fantastic speed. Very good gun and torpedo angles. It looks like the handling on those weapons is pretty great. Torpedoes can actually get pretty far toward the front of the ship. So little scrappy situations might actually be pretty interesting. The shells are extremely fast. 1,000 meters per second AP and 950 meters per second for the HE shells. That's going to make these guns feel really great. If you like the Soviet destroyers, if you like the Soviet cruisers, if you like any of these ships that have really fast shells and tend to have an easy time landing shells on target, well, this is going to join that club because the guns have very, very great shell performance. Obviously, its weakness would be its lack of armor. It's not the worst armor in the world, so let's be clear on that. But it's definitely not anything super duper tanky and tough. So you still have to play it carefully. But as long as you can keep it floating and put those guns to use, it looks like it's going to be a fun ship. French cruisers are also being worked on right now. Now, when I said that the Duca Dosta didn't have the worst armor in the world, that was in part because I was comparing it to the French cruisers, which literally do have the worst armor in the world. The low and mid-tier ones have essentially destroyer armor, and then as they go up, they still don't have anything really to write home about. However, looks like they have a few things going for them. They have very good gun range, actually. So, for example, the Tier 7 already has 17.9 kilometers of range. That's extremely good. So they've got that going for them, and they might be able to stay at distances where they're a little bit safer and still be able to pump out damage. Their real claim to fame is their engine boost. However, I'm not going to be the first one to point this out. It's a little bit of a gimmick until you get to the very top of the line. The Tier 10 is capable of traveling at 35 knots without the engine boost, which means once you put that on, it's actually going to be very, very, very fast. However, if you go lower than that, the Tier 9 is 33 base, the Tier 8 is 32.5 base, and for example, the Tier 6 and 7 are 31 knots base. That's rather slow, which means that with the engine boost active, assuming they get this engine boost consumable, it's only going to take them up to what all their other colleagues in the tier are capable of doing, and the rest of the time they're going to be going a lot slower. So it's a little bit of a gimmick, really, until you get to the very top. So I hope they take another look at that and make that something interesting about these ships other than just the Tier 10. Because it would be really neat if these mid-tier cruisers could really be speed demons and have that trick up their sleeve. But right now, it looks like they're almost being penalized. They don't really have a trick, and their trick is an engine boost, which only gets them up to parity with things and is more of a downgrade the rest of the time when the thing's not on. So we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. Smoke timer, if you haven't already checked it out, go into your settings, turn it on. There's no reason not to use it. It tells you how much time is left on your smoke. So if you're in any ship that uses smoke, this is extremely useful. There were already a few mods that were capable of doing this, but now it's built into the client, which is great. So switch it on. No reason not to. Some other stuff from 6.3, there are new carrier controls, and these are following a standard RTS sort of control scheme where you have left mouse button doing a lot of selection and basic controls, and then you have right mouse button doing actual movement orders for different squadrons. So I don't care about any of this because, frankly, I have one big gripe about carrier play, and that is that you can't zoom out further. I know that seems like a little detail, and if I had grown up on RTSs, I'm sure this wouldn't bother me at all. But that I always feel like I'm zoomed in just a little bit too far, and all that sort of screen panning nonsense that, again, I think is just second nature if you grew up on RTSs. That drives me completely bananas. I don't like going all the way out to the tactical map. I don't like doing half my work in the teeny tiny little mini map, even if I blow it up to full size. I'd really like to just stay in the main view and be able to scroll out and zoom continuously between the full tactical map and whatever zoom level I want. You can already do that in the free camera, so it's not an engine limitation or anything. It's just an arbitrary stop that's placed on the zoom. I hate it. Hey, if anyone's listening, consider unlocking that. But anyway, that's my take on it. I don't care. I don't play carriers, but I'm glad that they're looking into at least a short-term improvement, and we'll see what the long-term stuff they're working on is and what it looks like. So last, I want to talk about ranked a little bit. A lot of people complained about Tier 7 and and specifically the fact that a lot of the strongest ships for ranked are premiums. I can't really disagree with that. Specifically at tier 7 for ranked style play, most of the strongest ships were premium ships. The two exceptions that I noticed were the Fiji and the Nagato. Those were both, if you wanted to play something from the tech tree, those felt pretty solid to me. But the Sims, the Leningrad, which I think was underplayed, but that felt pretty great. The Scharnhorst, the Belfast, those ships were tremendously strong at that tier for this style of play, and so that leads me to to an interesting idea. This actually came up with General Dort recounting some of his escapades. For those of you who don't know, General Dort is a fantastic player, and he actually this past season ranked out on all 5 servers. That is correct, all 5. And so he was recently interviewed by the good people over at Shoot the Red Ships. It's a podcast about boats. Link in the description. Check them out. They're great. But anyway, they interviewed him recently, and they asked him what he wanted, what tier he'd like to see, and he surprised everybody and said tier 6. I know a lot of competitive people really love tier 8. Some love even tier 10. Not that would ever happen for ranked, but tier 6 though. My reaction is hell yeah. I actually think it's a really great tier. And when I actually broke it down, I looked at it and I thought, not only do I have a lot of ships that I really enjoy playing at tier 6, and frankly, I don't play enough anymore because I'm worried they'll get up tier to end up in a tier 8 battle because the way the matchmaking works these days. But it also has an awful lot of really strong tech tree ships. My favorites in that tier, I love the Badiani, I love the Anshan, I love the Dunkirk, I love the New Mexico. I think those are all really great. But I thought about it, and besides those, the Farragut is a really strong one. Fuso and the Cleveland. Whatever they end up doing, hopefully it'll be a good season and we'll have a lot of fun. So that's about it for now. In future episodes, I'll be adding a quick Q&A here at the end. So if you have questions you'd like answered or at least discussed, ask them in the comments down below. I might not catch or choose to include everything, but I'll try to grab at least a few to tackle each week. So thanks for watching, and happy boating.